Lin Xiaoyue unexpectedly traveled through time to become a noble consort, but was exiled to the northern border by the emperor. Since the dog emperor is cruel, don't blame her for her injustice. Before being exiled, if you don't empty your palace, just write Lin Xiaoyue's name upside down. So Lin Xiaoyue immediately activated the space ability, sweeping the entire palace. In the palace, the emperor's anger almost reached the roof. First, the guards ran back and reported that the queen's warehouse had been stolen. Then the people from the imperial kitchen ran to say that the prepared meals had been stolen. Immediately after, the hospital of Tai Hospital personally came over to apologize, saying that someone had emptied the entire Tai Hospital's medicinal materials. The manager of another grain depot had a pale face and came in trembling, saying that the granary was empty, but the initiator, Lin Xiaoyue, has already embarked on the path of exile with a wealth that rivals the country. Money is in my hands, and I have it in the world. Keywords of the novel. Before exile, the noble consort emptied the imperial palace without a pop-up window. Before exile, the noble consort emptied the imperial palace. Download the complete TXT collection. Before exile, the noble consort emptied the imperial palace. Read the latest chapters. Chapter 1. Exile begins with emptying the palace. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Exile begins with emptying the palace, the imperial palace of Dongsui Kingdom and Xiaoyue Palace. At this moment, there was a lot of noise in the Fuyakshuan, crying and persuading, as if it were a street market. There was no place like the former majesty of the palace. Empress, you, keep the Green Mountains and don't be afraid of running out of firewood. Don't take it for granted. Yeah, the emperor doted on you so much before. If you go and beg the emperor again, maybe the emperor will soften his heart. Madam, our entire Xiaoyue palace is still pointing at you. At least tell the emperor not to let everyone follow you in exile. A few young palace maids came in from outside and saw their master commit suicide by hanging himself. They timidly hid in a corner and cried, while only a few who were relatively loyal ran over and tightly hugged the master's leg, carefully placing her on the soft collapse next to them. In just a few months of entering the palace, the beautiful Empress Dowager Yu became the soon-to-be exiled criminal consort. Because she was too favored by Emperor Liang, she became a thorn in the eye of everyone in the harem, and even Empress Liang felt threatened. Empress Liang came directly to engage in a cruel scheme, and in the end, Empress Yu, who had no support, unfortunately fell into a trap and was demoted by Emperor Liang to the coldest northern region of slavery and exile. This makes the whole Xiaoyue palace unable to accept it. Everyone broke through their heads and entered the most popular Xiaoyue palace. Now that the master is exiled, how can they be better as servants? It's over. The Empress has passed out, she really gave up on herself. If we were not exiled, would we be sold to the palace? If we were to work as maids in a wealthy household, it would be okay, but if we were sold into a brothel? What should we do? Do you think of a way? A few young palace maids became more and more pessimistic as they thought, and began to hold their heads and cry bitterly. Then they saw other palace maids and eunuchs running out to pursue their future. They could no longer sit still and wiped away their tears as they ran out. In an instant, the once bustling Xiaoyue palace was so desolate that even mice refused to come and visit. Lin Xiaoyue slowly opened her eyes and heard the noise just now. She not only knew she had traveled, but also knew how the original owner died. The reason she remained silent was to see how many of the palace maids and eunuchs were loyal. In fact, she could accept crossing the country, but she never expected that others would be wealthy and handsome, chasing the streets. After crossing the country, she would not only be exiled, but also betray and become estranged from others. She was wealthy and beautiful in her past life, and a world-renowned genius scientist. Wherever she went, she was always sought after. Anyone who wants to give her small shoes has been cleaned up by her using technological means. Is it because her life is going too smoothly that God wants to give her a different deck to play? Humph, no matter what card, as long as it reaches Lin Xiaoyue's hand, it's the ace. I don't know if it was due to her sudden time travel, but her mind suddenly went dizzy and she had to close her eyes to adjust her breath. At that moment, a bright light flashed through and she entered a high-tech room that she was very familiar with. This room was her last research and development achievement before traveling. The intelligent space. As long as she could retrieve things from space with her mind, because she traveled too suddenly, she had not yet had a chance to come out. I didn't expect the smart space to travel with her, but I don't know if this space is still useful after changing time and space. Lin Xiaoyue's eyes twitched as the dog emperor wanted to exile her, so let's empty his palace. So he silently recited in his heart. I want the entire palace's food. With a whoosh sound, the search mode of the space was activated, and Lin Xiaoyue entered an uninhabited space. After arriving at the imperial granary, 2 single rooms were automatically generated in the space, and the wheat and rice in the granary were sucked into these 2 rooms. Lin Xiaoyue noticed that when the space took her away, a protective layer would cover her entire body. She could see the people outside, but they couldn't see her. It was like putting on an invisibility cloak. She excitedly picked up a grain of rice and took a bite in her mouth. There is no technology or ruthlessness in her original world, each one has a pure natural taste. The natural taste instantly activated Lin Xiaoyue's taste buds. It had been a long time since she had developed a desire for food, and she even let out a hunger protest in her stomach. She gently rubbed her stomach and her heart moved freely, taking her to the imperial dining room in the space. Upon arriving at the imperial dining room, the whole person was surrounded by the smell of vegetables, but because it was not time to eat, there was no one in the room, only some dishes that needed time to cook were steaming in the pot, and some delicate dim sum were prepared for the favored empress. She looked around, and all the food in her sight entered her space, including sweet and delicious desserts, Buddha jumps over the wall with fragrance, shark fin, bird's nest, etc. Because the space has automatic fresh keeping technology, there is no need to worry about the deterioration of these food because they cannot be eaten completely. The capital city is very far from the northern border, and with these delicious foods, you don't have to worry about hunger. It's just that even good people can suffer from illnesses if they spend long periods of time sleeping and sleeping outdoors. After thinking for a moment, Lin Xiaoyue blinked and the space was once again sensed, leading her directly to the Thai hospital. The hospital is very large, with the main hall in the front serving as the office for the imperial physicians, and the warehouse in the back serving as a reserve for drying medicinal materials. Some medicinal materials have been classified and placed in medicine cabinets, while others have not been processed and are placed in adjacent rooms. Sanqi, Tianma, Huangqi. She knows the effects of all these, and even has some traditional Chinese medicine formulas to memorize. There's no way, who makes her a genius scientist? Take them all away. How can one not prepare some medicine when going out? Just as she touched her fingers, a strong medicinal fragrance wafted into her nose, and rows of quaint medicine cabinets automatically rose in the space, labeled with various Chinese medicine names and made pills, all of which came from the pharmacy of Thai hospital in front of her. Yes, she moved the entire hospital in. As for the dog emperor, she was still married for 100 days, but the dog emperor exiled her regardless of the situation. Indeed, since ancient times, kings have been so unlucky. Although I don't like being a concubine and don't want to compete with a bunch of women for favor, since everyone has come and isn't taking something from the antique palace, how can I justify the hardships the original owner endured? And I took over her body when the original owner was about to die, so I had to avenge her before being exiled. Then let Empress Liang be punished, who would let her frame the original owner. Undoubtedly, it is the palace where the Empress resides. The Jinxiu Palace is much more magnificent and spacious than her Xiaoye Palace. The harem is the final say of our palace. What is Princess Yu? How dare you compete with me? You have done a good job. It will be good if you follow our palace in the future. A lazy and crisp voice came out, and upon hearing it, Lin Xiaoyue was immediately angry. Dog Queen, let's wait and see. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Empress pulling the dog into the water. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Empress pulling the dog into the water. A graceful and luxurious woman with a phoenix hairpin on her head sat proudly on the soft ground, with a small palace maid squatting on the ground beside her to press her feet, and another small palace maid holding a crystal-clear grape waiting for the woman to enjoy. This person Lin Xiaoyue can guess with her toes that she must be Empress Liang, and these two little palace maids are the ones who left her Xiaoyue palace. I didn't expect to betray her master so quickly, and even find out that it was her number one enemy, Lin Xiaoyue. Lin Xiaoyue walked over angrily and twisted Empress Liang's leg, then spat in her face and swaggered towards her warehouse. All of this happened extremely quickly. Empress Liang only felt a pain in her leg, and then a gust of wind blew by, and her face was covered in sticky things. She raised her hand and touched it, but surprisingly, it was phlegm spit out by a person. Empress Liang immediately thought of what the two young palace maids who had defected from Xiaoyue Palace had done. She shouted to the guards, "Someone! Take them all out and kill them. Empress, spare your life. I am wrongly accused." The two young palace maids felt very innocent in their hearts and knelt on the ground, pleading with tears and a runny nose. It was not their fault to do this, even if they were given 100 courage. They dared not do this to the Empress. But the infuriated Empress Liang felt an unprecedented humiliation and suddenly passed out in a fit of anger, causing chaos in the entire hall. On the other hand, Lin Xiaoyue went straight to the diligent hall of the Dog Emperor. Here, she had to do something big. Empress Liang dared to use a cruel trick to harm her. If this bad woman was not dragged down, how could she be willing to be exiled? Because it was still the time of the court, there was no one inside the Hall of Diligence. Lin Xiaoyue walked up to the table and saw several memorials placed on it, all of which wrote about the second prince's repeated military achievements in the border areas, his integrity, and never taking pride in his achievements. She hoped that Emperor Liang could appoint the second prince as the crown prince. Second prince. This one is not born to the queen. If she took so many memorials away, the emperor would definitely find out, right? The establishment of a crown prince has always been a national matter, and ministers who write memorials will definitely ask after him. Once the Dog Emperor discovers that the memorial has been hidden by Empress Liang, with the emperor's suspicious personality, Empress Liang's good days have come to an end. Thinking of this, Lin Xiaoyue kicked the memorial into her arms and headed straight to the Jinqiu Palace. At this moment, Empress Liang fainted and the imperial physician was administering injections to her, so she could quietly hear a single needle drop inside the palace. After the imperial physician finished administering the needle, the personal maid followed the imperial physician to the imperial hospital to collect medicine, leaving only Empress Liang and Lin Wushuang in the palace. Lin Xiaoyue saw that Empress Liang had not yet woken up. She seized the opportunity to hide several memorials in Empress Liang's sleeve robe, and then stood by the bed waiting to watch the play. Soon, a royal guard walked up to Empress Liang and bowed, saying, "Your Majesty, we are searching the entire harem according to the emperor's orders. No one can leave until the results are out." Empress Liang couldn't believe her own ears. Since entering the palace, no one has dared to act recklessly in front of her, even the most favored concubine Yu has fallen into her hands. Is it the little fairy Yu Fei who is playing tricks again? I want to see the emperor in this palace. She struggled to get up from bed, not expecting a few things to fall out of her cuffs. The chief guard picked up the item and saw that it was the memorial that the emperor was anxiously looking for. He said to his subordinates, "The thing the emperor lost is here. Go and invite the emperor." Empress Liang feels like she's dreaming, how could the memorial be with her? She hurriedly grabbed the memorial and saw that it was all about inviting the emperor to appoint the second prince as crown prince. Does the emperor also intend to appoint the second prince? That's why he went to great lengths to send people everywhere to search. Fake. This must be someone framing our palace. You must be the second prince's people, intentionally targeting our palace. At this moment, Emperor Liang walked in from outside and stopped Empress Liang, who was still shouting and cursing. Liang Jiqiong, you have so much courage that you dare to steal my memorial. You thought your family was given the imperial surname by the late emperor, so I really dare not do anything to you. Someone, beat Liang Jiqiong into the cold palace. Empress Liang realized that the situation had escalated and held Emperor Liang's hand, pleading bitterly, Your Majesty, it was not my concubine who did it. My concubine is truly unjustified. Your Majesty, 1 day 100 days of kindness between husband and wife, please give my concubine a chance. Emperor Liang snorted coldly, shook off Empress Liang's hand, and cursed, everything fell from you. How dare you say that you are unjust? Do you want me to copy your mother's house, the Zhenguo Mansion, before you repent? I understand my mistake, thank you for your kindness, Lord. Empress Liang fell weakly to the ground. She was so mute now that she couldn't express the bitterness of eating Huanglian. Who the hell is harming her? But she dare not plead anymore now. If she really steals even the Zhenguo Mansion, then she and her eldest prince will be ruined. Standing on the side, Lin Xiaoyue felt absolutely thrilled. Does Empress Liang, who is towering, really think she can cover up the sky with one hand? A noble family like this is most likely to become a thorn in the emperor's side. After all, one mountain cannot tolerate 2 tigers. However, since Empress Liang is going to the cold palace, she will reluctantly accept the treasures here. Exile is so difficult, at least she will charge some interest. Lin Xiaoyue first used the space to collect all the money, gold, silver, and jewelry in Empress Liang's dormitory, and then let the space lead the way into the warehouse of the Jinqiu Palace. This warehouse is really big, and indeed has the aura of an empress. Her sparkling jewels made her unable to open her eyes, and she didn't care whether she knew anyone or not. Is what was left here worth anything? So all income space. These things were all antiques in her former world, what if there was a chance to wear them back? Don't miss the opportunity to become rich no matter what. After plundering the Jinqiu Palace, she went straight back to Xiaoyue Palace. It is said that she will be exiled today, and it is getting late. She should also go and wait. Sure enough, as soon as I arrived at the Xiaoyue Palace, a guard came in from behind. Lin Xiaoyue pinched her thighs heavily and cried tearfully, Your Majesty, I don't want to go into exile. You let go of me, I want to see the emperor. The guards knew that the concubine Moon would rebel this month and said coldly, the emperor said if you don't listen, you will be killed on the spot. Lin Xiaoyue didn't expect that the dog emperor not only picked up his pants and didn't recognize people, but also was so ruthless. Looking up, he happened to meet the cold gaze of the guard, as if saying that he didn't want to die and would leave. Humph, it's better to live than to die. Dog Emperor, let's wait and see. She put on her backpack and said, let's go. The guards took out iron chains and handcuffed Lin Xiaoyue's hands and feet before taking her out of the palace. Outside the palace gate, there are already Yamen guards waiting, and this kind of exile does not require the palace guards to personally go. Lin Xiaoyue looked back at the tall palace gate and took a deep breath. Will she come back to this unlucky place? End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Zhenguo Mansion is facing a major disaster. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Zhenguo Mansion is facing a major disaster. Before leaving the capital, Lin Xiaoyue was once again stopped by the palace guards. She looked at the guard in front of her with a puzzled expression and asked, What do you want to do? The imperial order is with her, no comment. The guard began to search for her baggage without saying a word, even wanting to search for Lin Xiaoyue's body. Lin Xiaoyue guessed that the thing she had stolen might have been discovered, but the guards dared to search in public. She angrily pushed away the nearby guards and cursed, "Do you think I'm not miserable enough? Get out of here. Sorry, there's something wrong with the palace. You can't leave the city today and will be detained in the prison of Shantian Prefecture for the time being." The guards only searched for some clothes, silver, and jewelry from the package. They saw that Lin Xiaoyue was so thin that she couldn't hide so many things lost in the palace. They returned the package to Lin Xiaoyue and then left. In this way, Lin Xiaoyue was once again locked up in the prison of Shantian Prefecture. In the imperial palace, Emperor Liang's anger was almost burning to the roof at this moment. First, the guards from the Jinxiu Palace came back to report that the entire Jinxiu Palace was empty and spotless. Then the people in the imperial kitchen ran to say that the prepared meals had been stolen by someone. Immediately after, the hospital of Tai Hospital personally came over to apologize, saying that someone had stolen all the medicinal materials from Tai Hospital. As soon as the manager of the grain depot came in, he turned pale and said that the granary was empty. Who can take things out of the palace without even realizing it? At first, what he thought of was Lin Xiaoyue. After all, he had given her the most honor and favor, and now he has exiled her to the northern realm. It's like falling from heaven to hell, even more cruel than taking her life. Lin Xiaoyue must hate him to death. At this moment, the guards who were sent out hurriedly walked in and saluted, saying, "Your Majesty, I have searched the consort Lin Xiaoyue and her palace, and have not found any abnormalities." The restless heart of Emperor Liang instantly cooled down. If it weren't for this woman, who would it be? If Lin Xiaoyue is his favorite woman, then Liang Jiqiong is definitely the woman with the greatest power in the harem. Lin Xiaoyue's time in the palace is short and she doesn't have much foundation, but Liang Jiqiong is not that simple anymore. She is not only the head of the harem but also the legitimate daughter of the Duke of Zhenguo. It's so easy for her to bribe people. Moreover, all the dowry in the warehouse of the Jinxiu Palace is hers, and any one she takes out is priceless. That warehouse can be said to be wealthy enough to rival the country. Could it be that Jie Qiong had already anticipated and hid it in advance? Set up the cold palace. Emperor Liang stood up and walked towards the back palace. In the cold palace, Liang Jiqiong heard that Emperor Liang had come and thought it was because he had changed his mind. She quickly tidied up her clothes and went out to greet him. "Congratulations to the emperor, long live my emperor." Emperor Liang stepped forward and kicked over Liang Jiqiong, who was kneeling on the ground. He demanded, "Tell me. Where did you hide all your things?" "Your Majesty, what are you talking about?" Liang Jiqiong gritted her teeth to suppress the pain and asked inexplicably. Emperor Liang said with a cold face, "What about the things in the warehouse of the Jinxiu Palace? And my imperial kitchen, granary, and hospital? Liang Jiqiong, do you want to empty my palace?" Liang Jiqiong looked at Emperor Liang with a shocked expression on her face and asked, "Your Majesty, you said my dowries are gone." The more Emperor Liang looked at the woman in front of him, the more disgusted he felt, especially with this pretentious and twisted posture, afraid that others wouldn't know she was pretending. "Liang Jiqiong, you don't need to pretend anymore. I'll give you one last chance. If you hand over everything, I'll let you spend your old age peacefully in this cold palace. Otherwise, don't blame me for not remembering old relationships." Liang Jiqiong realized that the emperor had a murderous heart this time, but she really didn't know where the things were. But she can't die. What should her eldest prince do if she dies? She frantically grabbed the clothes of Emperor Liang and begged, "Your Majesty, it wasn't me who did it. I was wronged. We have been married for many years, you must believe me. Take it easy." Emperor Liang shook off Liang Jiqiong's hand in disgust and strode away from the cold palace. Returning to the Hall of Diligence, Emperor Liang still couldn't swallow this breath. As the ruler of a grand country, someone dared to deceive the world under his nose, and this person was also his empress. How unreasonable. He paced back and forth in the hall, and finally pointed to the door and ordered, "Someone. Bring the Duke of Zhenguo into the palace. The guards must order them to go out immediately." After a while, Duke Zhenguo walked with heavy steps into the Hall of Diligence. Although he had already learned about his daughter's fate on the way, he still kept the etiquette of being a ruler and a minister and knelt on the ground, saying, "I have seen the Emperor. Long live my Emperor! Long live!" Emperor Liang did not let him get up and directly spoke up, "You know that the Empress stole memorials for the purpose of establishing a crown prince." In the heart of the Duke of Zhenguo, he really wanted to curse Emperor Liang to the point of bloodshed. He thought that when the late emperor established the crown prince, if it weren't for his strong support for the king in front of him, he wouldn't have determined who would be the emperor now. Unexpectedly, just for this trivial matter, Emperor Liang deposed his daughter's position as empress. It seems that Emperor Liang has long been dissatisfied with them. But just thinking about it, it's better for anyone to hold 1,000,000 strong soldiers than for Emperor Liang to hold them himself. Duke Zhenguo lowered his head to conceal his anger and said in a deep voice, "I hope the emperor can forgive you for your foolish behavior." Emperor Liang sneered. The old fox was indeed cunning and wanted to go over lightly. "Of course I'm not that petty person, but the Empress has emptied my palace. What do you think I should do, Duke Zhenguo?" Zhenguo Gong's heart tightened as he wondered what kind of person his daughter was. And moving the palace empty doesn't mean rebelling. The emperor is forcing their family to death. "Your Majesty, I believe there is another mystery to this matter. I hope the emperor can investigate it clearly." Emperor Liang will not investigate. He has long wanted the military power in the hands of Duke Zhenguo, and can also confiscate the property of Duke Zhenguo's mansion. When the matter is over, he will marry a young, beautiful, and wealthy empress. This is simply a win-win situation. He squinted his eyes dangerously and cursed angrily, "Cha! Does Duke Zhenguo think I am wronging you? Don't think you are the last emperor's minister who cares about his life. I dare not do anything to you." The heart of Duke Zhenguo sank into the sea in an instant. It seems that he cannot escape today. The emperor's wings are now hard and his ambition is also great. No matter how loyal they are to the government, the emperor is no longer satisfied with this. He knocked his head heavily on the ground for 3 times and confidently said, "I dare not. But I will follow the late emperor through life and death, be loyal to heaven and earth, and never do anything against the Tao." Emperor Liang was most annoyed to hear the words, "late emperor." He turned around and sat down at the table. "The Duke of Zhenguo has made great contributions in assisting the government, but I remember that you are already old and not suitable to work on military affairs anymore. Today, you can hand over the tiger talisman. In addition, the death penalty for the Empress can be exempted, and all the property of the Duke of Zhenguo's mansion will be confiscated. The Empress will be demoted to a commoner and leave the palace today." Duke Zhenguo felt something collapse with a loud bang, leaving only 2 words in his head. "Finished. I want to spend my entire life fighting for my country, but now it has come to such a tragic end. I object." A loud voice came from outside the main hall, and the Duke of Zhenguo was overjoyed. When he turned his head, he indeed saw a familiar figure. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. She entered the palace again. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. She entered the palace again. Emperor Liang frowned and looked coldly at the person before him. It turned out to be his son, the eldest Prince Liang Hongxian, born to the Empress. "Hongxian, what are you doing here? My eloquent words are precious, how could you come to speak up?" Liang Hongxian knelt down on the ground with a thud, desperately bowing and pleading, "Father, please give your mother and grandfather another chance. I beg you." Emperor Liang picked up the tea cup in his hand and smashed it fiercely onto the ground. In an instant, the tea soup splattered everywhere, and the tea cup shattered into countless pieces. "If you can immediately restore the fragments on the ground to their original shape, then I will give them another chance." Liang Hongxian couldn't help but take a cold breath. How could so many fragments be possible? But in order to win the forgiveness of his father, he can only do it once. As time passed, his hand had already been pierced several times by fragments, and the crimson blood kept flowing down. However, he didn't even frown. He knew very well that if he couldn't save his mother and grandfather's family, his struggle for succession would lose its greatest advantage. Enough. Send the eldest prince back and let the imperial physician treat him well. Emperor Liang impatiently stopped Liang Hongxian, who was flustered below. When Liang Hongxian heard his father's voice, like a sharp sword piercing through his heart, was there really nothing he could do? He felt so sad that he was about to die. On the other side, there is the prison of Shuntian Prefecture in the capital city. After Lin Xiaoyue was imprisoned, she heard the prison leader and several subordinates muttering loudly outside, as if it was related to the palace, but the distance was too far for her to hear clearly. So she pretended to have a stomachache and shouted loudly in prison, "Oh my! It hurts me so much, is anyone there? My stomach hurts so much." The prison warden knew that Lin Xiaoyue had come out of the palace. To avoid causing trouble, he decided to walk over and take a look. "What's going on? If you can't die, just hold on to it. There's no one here to serve you." Lin Xiaoyue frowned and said, "I seem to have eaten something bad. Can you help me find a doctor? I'll pay." The prison warden saw a white silver ingot swaying in front of him. Without saying a word, he stuffed the silver into his arms and promised, "Wait." Lin Xiaoyue saw that the prison warden was easy to bribe. She took out another ingot of silver and stuffed it into the warden's hand, continuing to ask, "Big brother, wait a moment. I was quite enthusiastic about what you just said. Did something happen?" Sure enough, the prison warden was someone who was quick-witted and soft-tongued, speaking out everything he heard with one bone and one bone. The Empress was deposed, and then someone saw the Duke of Zhenguo enter the palace. It's probably going to save the Empress. After all, this affects the future of the Crown Prince's succession dispute and also involves the future of the Duke of Zhenguo's mansion. Lin Xiaoyue was a bit surprised. She didn't expect the news in the palace to spread so quickly. Sure enough, there is no wall in the world that doesn't leak. She asked curiously, "Do you think Duke Zhenguo can save him?" The prison shook his head and said, "It's hard to say. Duke Zhenguo is the right-hand man of the late emperor, highly valued by the late emperor, and holds 1,000,000 strong soldiers. But then again, if the emperor doesn't want to tear his face off Duke Zhenguo, he won't be deposed. Alas, who can say for sure when it comes to an emperor or a courtier?" Lin Xiaoyue rubbed her stomach and said with a smile, "I see. I feel my stomach is better now, so I won't bother Big Brother to hire a doctor for now. This silver is considered my filial piety to Big Brother." The prison warden weighed the silver in his hand and thought to himself that it was indeed from the palace. He really knows how to be a good person and is generous in his actions. "Call me again if you have something to do." As he spoke, he happily touched the silver in his hand and walked out. Lin Xiaoyue was soon left alone in the prison cell, sitting on the ground lost in thought. The dog emperor was not a good person. Duke Zhenguo's entry into the palace this time is unlikely to save Empress Liang, especially with 1,000,000 strong soldiers. If Duke Zhenguo has any misconceptions, the throne of the dog emperor will be in jeopardy. How can a bed allow others to sleep soundly? The dog emperor is expected to use this matter to directly take down the Duke of Zhenguo, ranging from military power to beheading. Since the Duke of Zhenguo's mansion cannot be preserved, then we must not compromise with the dog emperor. She's going to the Zhenguo mansion to collect the treasure now. To prevent anyone from entering, she first gathered the straw on the ground into the corner, then changed into a new set of clothes from the bundle and put it on. Then, she put the clothes on the straw with her back facing outside, and covered it with a blanket to pretend she was sleeping inside. After finishing these tasks, she stood from a distance and looked into the corner, feeling uneasy. It was then that she activated the space and headed straight for the Zhenguo Mansion. At this time, another group of people set out from the palace, all of whom were the imperial guards sent by Emperor Liang to raid the Zhenguo Mansion. They pulled empty carriages and marched towards the Zhenguo Mansion in a grand manner. Lin Xiaoyue and the imperial guards almost arrived at the Zhenguo Mansion at the same time. Looking at so many imperial guards, Lin Xiaoyue had another plan in her heart. If the stolen treasure enters the palace and disappears, how should the dog emperor deal with the imperial guards? You should know that most of the people who can become imperial guards are descendants of aristocratic families. If they are all killed, it will offend all the courtiers in the court. If he doesn't kill, can he swallow this breath? No, we must not let the dog emperor swallow this breath. So, Lin Xiaoyue sat in the yard watching as the imperial guards loaded one vehicle after another until the entire town government office was emptied before leaving. When she returned to the palace, she sat directly on the carriage of the imperial guards pulling boxes. Anyway, she was in an invisible state, so she was not afraid of being discovered. The carriage did not stop at the entrance of the palace. After the imperial guards presented their tokens, they hurriedly headed straight to the inner treasury, because Emperor Liang was already waiting there. Lin Xiaoyue didn't expect to see Emperor Liang again within a day, with a greedy expression on her face. Before the box could be opened, Emperor Liang rushed up and opened it, holding the treasure inside with his eyes wide open and his mouth wide open to his temples. I really want to show this ugly face to the people all over the world. It's really disgusting. Lin Xiaoyue bypassed Emperor Liang and walked directly to the inner warehouse. She wanted to see how many treasures the dog emperor had hidden, and take them with her when they moved later. Standing at the entrance of the inner warehouse, Lin Xiaoyue saw everything at once. There were not as many treasures here as in the Zhenguo Mansion, and even the warehouse of Empress Liang could not match it. With such a shabby inner warehouse, no wonder the dog emperor had to wait here to collect the treasures himself. Oh, how proud Emperor Liang is now, how heartbroken he will be when he discovers that all his treasures have been lost. As soon as Lin Xiaoyue thought of the dog emperor's heart wrenching like a knife, she was so happy that she wanted to fly. Originally, she only wanted to move food to avoid starvation and exile, but who would have thought that the dog emperor was so inhumane? So she acted on behalf of heaven and taught the dog emperor a lesson. At this moment, the shout of Emperor Liang came from outside, "Take it all from me. Be gentle with your hands and feet. Be careful if you damage your heads." The imperial guards were stared at by Emperor Liang, causing their scalp to tingle. The boxes that could have been moved quickly took them a full hour to move. Emperor Liang looked at the room full of treasures and felt extremely happy. He said to the eunuch beside him on the spot, "Little Detsi, I have ordered the Internal Affairs Office to present the portraits of all the beautiful women within 10 days. I want to choose a new queen." "Yes, I obey." Eunuch Xiadizi quickly left in response. Emperor Liang touched the treasure for a while before reluctantly leaving the inner treasury. Bang! The door of the inner warehouse was tightly closed, and Lin Xiaoyue heard 2 locks falling outside, so Emperor Liang left with peace of mind. But what's the use of this? She waved her hand, and the treasures in the inner warehouse obediently lined up and flew into her space. The boxes that were just full suddenly turned into empty boxes. What could be more satisfying than this? Emperor Liang will soon become the groom again, but with this empty treasury, what else can he offer as a dowry? I'm not sure whose home they're going to steal again to recharge the internal storage. 1 or 2 families are probably not enough. Since the dog emperor is not kind to you, don't blame her for being unjust. Let's see who suffers more. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Capital, she will come back again. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Capital, she will come back again. The next morning, Lin Xiaoyue was awakened by the sound of footsteps in the prison. Perhaps she had come to this unfamiliar world without a sense of security, so even her sleep was shallow. She sat up and looked outside. It turned out that the warden was carrying a wooden bucket in, so she walked over and said, "Thank you, big brother, for bringing me food so early." The prison warden glanced at her and put down the barrel, saying, "The boss said, you have eaten earlier so you can go on the road." Lin Xiaoyue didn't expect the dog emperor to be so eager to exile her. She was surprised and asked, "Didn't it say there was an accident in the palace? Everything is okay now. Has the Empress been saved?" The prison warden took some silver from Lin Xiaoyue yesterday, but his mouth was quite relaxed. He nodded and said, "The Empress followed the Duke of Zhenguo out of the palace yesterday." "Oh, no, we can't call him Duke of Zhenguo anymore. The Duke of Zhenguo's mansion has been raided, and they are currently living in the prince's other courtyard." "That's right. Thank you for taking care of me these 2 days. I can live in such a clean prison, and I owe it to you to eat such white mantou." Lin Xiaoyue smiled and nodded, thinking that the imperial family has always been ruthless, but almost everyone wants to sit on that dragon chair. The reason why the dog emperor did not take the life of the Duke of Zhenguo's family may still be due to the face of the eldest prince and the royal family. But for the eldest prince, a wealthy and powerless maternal family is equivalent to waste. It is estimated that the eldest prince will soon find reasons to drive them away. As long as the crown prince's position is still vacant, various factions will be eager to fight, so that the dog emperor can benefit from it. The instability of the court is unfavorable for the Eastern Sui kingdom. Because she was thinking about things, Lin Xiaoyue ate very slowly, but the prison guard was flattered by Lin Xiaoyue just now and was very patient. After Lin Xiaoyue finished eating, he took back his dishes and reminded him before leaving, "Sister, call me big brother and I'll call you sister too. Beijing is a place that can eat people, and I think you're also smart. You must be clever in everything." Lin Xiaoyue didn't expect the prison leader to have a good conscience. She quickly stuffed another ingot of silver into the prison leader and asked, "Big brother, can you tell me what the Northern Territory really looks like?" The prison warden glanced outside and whispered, "The capital is about 10 days away from the northern border. If 10 people go there, almost half of them will die on the road. Even if they reach the northern border, someone as beautiful as you, if they are lucky, will be taken to serve the general. If the general doesn't want you, they will be taken to warm the beds of others. And it's already snowing in the northern region now, and the weather is cold and there's no food to find. You can't escape even if you want. So when you get there, you either comply or die if you want to, otherwise you'll be tortured to the point where life is more difficult than death." Lin Xiaoyue was startled by the prison leader's words. Indeed, she had thought it was easy. She thought exile was just a way to work hard in the past, but unexpectedly, the dog emperor wanted her to be tortured to death. It was really vicious. She took a deep breath and smiled gratefully, "Thank you for reminding me, big brother. I will definitely remember it in my heart." At this moment, the previously escorted Yamen guard walked in with an iron chain and said to the prison captain, "Open the door, we are here to take people." Okay, I'll open the door." The warden took out the key and walked over to open the prison door. Lin Xiaoyue felt intimidated as she looked at the iron chain in the hands of the Yamen runner. Walking that distance yesterday made her hands and feet ache. If she walked to the north, she was afraid that her hands and feet would break. She frowned and said, "Big brothers, can you not tie me an iron chain? I promise not to run away." The Yamen runner cursed fiercely, "Do you still consider yourself the empress in the palace? Do I still want to make a sedan chair for you to sit in?" Lin Xiaoyue knew that dogs that have always bitten people wouldn't bark. She extended her wrist, which had been worn out by the iron chain before, and said, "Look. The emperor wants me to be exiled to the northern border. If I am dragged to death by this iron chain halfway, how will you come back to pay your respects? You should also know that I used to be the most favored empress in the palace. If it weren't for the empress framing me, the emperor wouldn't have exiled me. But now the empress has also been demoted. You say, halfway through, the emperor has changed his mind again. Are you planning to have a living person or a dead person? The Yamen runners were momentarily silenced by Lin Xiaoyue's righteous and imposing demeanor. They were still the first women exiled to the palace, and the authorities did not explain how to do things. However, this woman's words seemed quite reasonable. If the emperor thought it was better for this woman, they would not be able to send her back. The woman of this emperor must not be underestimated. Blow a pillow breeze, maybe their whole family will be exterminated. But where is there anyone who is exiled without an iron chain? If the boss finds out, they will be scolded lightly and may lose their jobs. Just as the two Yamen officials were hesitating, Lin Xiaoyue took out 2 bags of silver and stuffed them into their hands, saying with a smile, "Don't you understand? The emperor didn't let me go into exile empty-handed." The 2 Yamen runners were instantly blessed, secretly opening a crack in the money bag, revealing a golden light inside. They may never make that much money in their lifetime. Can they really do it? But Lin Xiaoyue didn't give them a way out in the following words. She leaned in front of them and whispered, "If I could live to the north, each of you would still get another bag." The 2 Yamen runners no longer hesitated and happily stuffed the money bag into their arms, politely saying, "Miss, please. If you have any instructions on the way, please feel free to say so. We will definitely take care of you." Lin Xiaoyue snorted coldly, "Sure enough, money can make ghosts grind." She shouldered her burden and strode out of the prison, while the other exiled people saw Lin Xiaoyue come out clean and untied, with envy and jealousy on their faces. Lin Xiaoyue only sighed for a moment when she saw their disheveled faces, not knowing who these people had offended again. But just now she was just intimidating these 2 Yamen runners with a false tiger's power. What if they come back to their senses and want to tie an iron chain for her? Alas, let's sweep the snow in front of each door. Give me some peace. If anyone dares to run away halfway, just stay put and kill them. Follow me. A chubby Yamen runner waved his whip and issued a warning, then walked out with steps that he didn't recognize. As she walked out of the city gate, Lin Xiaoyue turned her head and looked at the tall and majestic gate. This inch of land and inch of gold was the place with the most money, and she really couldn't bear to part with it. She touched her head and made a very important decision, "Beijing, I will come back again. When I have no money." The next journey was quite smooth, and the 2 Yamen runners didn't find it difficult for Lin Xiaoyue because of the 2 bulging bags of silver in their arms. Occasionally, they could chat on the way, but it was really boring just to walk all the way. During the conversation, Lin Xiaoyue learned that the chubby Yamen runner he was talking about earlier was named Bai, and the skinny Yamen runner was named Yuan. This was their last exile this year, and when they arrived in the northern region, they had to immediately return to report because it was difficult to walk on the road after the snow in winter. "Then I must cross the mountain next to Yangming town before it gets dark today, because it is often haunted at night and rarely visited during the day. But they must pass through this mountain when going to the north, otherwise they will have to detour further." Lin Xiaoyue couldn't help but squint her eyes. Is it haunted? That's quite interesting. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. She shouldn't meddle in her own affairs. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. She shouldn't meddle in her own affairs. At noon, the autumn sun was no less than that of summer, scorching hot above her head. Lin Xiaoyue felt her back start to sweat, and after leaving the capital, they had no chance to rest. The 2 Yamen runners urged and pulled them desperately, as if the Yangming mountain was so terrifying. 2 Yamen officials, we've been walking all morning. Let's sit down and rest for a while. Lin Xiaoyue saw several prisoners beside her with white lips, swaying and falling at any moment. She sat down on the ground, panting heavily. Zhangbo was about to start cursing, but when he turned around, he saw Lin Xiaoyue sitting on the ground. The words on his lips were instantly swallowed by him, his throat cleared, and he said, "Rest in place. I'll follow you up the mountain in a while." If anyone falls behind the line, wait for the ghost to eat you tonight. Lin Xiaoyue followed Jiang Bai's finger and saw a fork in the road not far away. On the left fork stood a wooden sign from Yangming town, and on the right was an uphill road. It seemed that they had reached the foot of Yangming mountain. She drank some water, and then took out a mantu from the bundle. This was because she took some dry food from the space and put it in the bundle in advance in order not to be found her secret. She quickly ate 2 mantu. She planned to take a nap as soon as possible and roll over the mountain in front of her without saving strength. Pop! Just as she was sleeping comfortably, a loud whip sound rang out. She suddenly lifted her head and saw a thin and weak man curled up on the ground, trembling with the beating, desperately shouting, "Spare your life. Officer, why did this person make you angry?" She bit her lip, but couldn't suppress her frustration in the end. She walked over and asked. Jiang Bai lashed his whip and scolded his mother. The dog lied about urinating, and then tried to escape while we were napping. I won't kill him. Lin Xiaoyue tilted her head and met the man's stubborn gaze, which was kind. Yaman, you're angry, but at this moment you've beaten someone up. If he can't leave the mountain, then we won't be able to stay overnight on the mountain tonight. Well, I don't want to be eaten by ghosts. Jiang Bo felt that Lin Xiaoyue's words also made sense. He withdrew his whip and angrily warned the man on the ground, "Dog, it's your luck. In the next time, you'll just wait to see the king of hell." The man got up from the ground in pain and lowered his head to say to Lin Xiaoyue, "Thank you very much." Lin Xiaoyue waved her hand and whispered, "If you want to escape, be more clever. Let's go, I'm afraid of ghosts. It's better to climb over this mountain as soon as possible." The man grabbed Lin Xiaoyue's clothes and said, "Are ghosts scary to anyone? I, as a man, went to the northern border and became a slave, living like a dog. But if you go there as a woman, you will only be worse off than a dog, living a life of 1,000 people supporting 10,000 people riding. I see these 2 Yaman runners still listen to you a bit, why don't we cooperate and escape?" Lin Xiaoyue was tempted for a moment, but soon she regained her composure. She doesn't understand this man at all. Now that we're talking about collaboration, maybe we'll end up using her as a cushion. She's not that foolish. Thank you for your reminder, but everyone has their own destiny, and I don't want to escape. The man's face turned black in an instant and he sarcastically said, "I'm used to doing things. I do the same everywhere I go." Lin Xiaoyue knew that the man in front of her was mocking her as a prostitute, waiting for her to stand up and be innocent. However, she was not a 3-year-old child, and she had enough to compete with a stranger. She even began to regret the man who had just stopped Jiang Boya from smoking this poisonous mouth. As expected, people should not meddle in their own affairs, as it is easy to step on feces. What's your concern? After a cold reply, she heard 2 Yaman runners, Jiang Bai and Yuan, waving their whips desperately urging others to get up and prepare to climb the mountain, so she turned her head and followed them. Yangming mountain is not low. As she walked up the mountain road, Lin Xiaoyue felt more and more sore in her calves, making it difficult to lift her feet and even her head became chaotic. She glanced at the other prisoners who were tied to iron chains, and these people were dragged down by heavy chains, making it even more difficult for them to walk. Can you really climb this mountain at this turtle speed before dark? Suddenly, her mind flashed with the image of a former mountaineer holding a hiking stick. She lowered her head and found a thick branch on the ground to use as a hiking stick, walking step by step with the branch. With the branches, the whole person seems to have support, and walking is not as difficult as before. Let's still look for a branch like me, it's too difficult just to walk up the mountain. Others saw that Lin Xiaoyue was walking more easily than before, and they also started to pick up branches on the ground like a model. Sure enough, this method is very useful, and everyone's speed is much faster than before. Jiang Bai couldn't help but cast an admiring gaze at Lin Xiaoyue. She truly came out of the palace, her mind is smart. Ah, such a clever girl, perhaps she will really hit the nail on the head. The emperor will be thinking of her kindness in a few days and want her to go back. He walked up to Lin Xiaoyue and said with a smile, if you really can't walk, I'll let Yuan accompany you here to rest for a while. I'll take these people with me first. Lin Xiaoyue originally intended to refuse, but she looked up and met the hostile gaze of the man just now. Humph, some people looked at her so badly that she wanted to anger him to death. So she deliberately nodded and said loudly, okay. Thank you very much to the 2 yamen runners. I disagree. Why can she stay and rest? We still need to move forward. The man's angry eyes were about to burst out just now. Jiang Bai picked up his whip and whipped him. What are you? If you don't want to die here, let me go. The man was so painful that he could hardly stand. He gave Lin Xiaoyue a fierce cut and gritted his teeth as he walked up the mountain. Lin Xiaoyue felt very proud in her heart and pretended to be at a loss, saying, I'd better follow you guys, otherwise someone will hate me to death. Don't worry about that dog thing. Don't worry about resting here. Let's walk slowly, we'll wait for you ahead. Jiang Bo called Yuan to remind him a few words, and then continued walking with the others. Let's go, let's go. If anyone continues to procrastinate, be careful to eat my whip. The remaining people, although jealous of Lin Xiaoyue's special treatment, were also afraid of being whipped, so they had to swallow their complaints and bury their heads and walk forward. Lin Xiaoyue sat down in a clean place and couldn't help but ponder as she watched the distant procession. In fact, since the prison warden of Zhenguo Mansion told her about the situation of exile in the northern region, she had plans to escape. However, she didn't expect that she had just been kind enough to help that man, but he was jealous and resentful of her. Next, it will be even harder for her to escape. Not only will she have to deceive the eyes of Jiang Bai and Yuan, but she will also have to deceive the man just now. What should she do? The more she thought, the more irritable she became. She couldn't sit still and stood up, saying, let's hurry as soon as possible. In case we can't get out of this mountain before dark, it will be troublesome. Yuan nodded and walked to the front to lead the way, okay. Old Jiang and his team haven't gone far yet, we should be able to keep up with them. You don't have to worry. Lin Xiaoyue couldn't help but roll her eyes in her heart. She didn't want to keep up with the team so quickly. Now is a great opportunity to mark along the way, so she will know how to escape in the future. She took out a small dagger from the space and hid it in her palm when Yuan was not paying attention. She then walked closely against the big tree by the roadside, taking a few steps and then swiping twice on the tree. Her movements were fast and careful, but she walked 2 or 3 steps slower than Yuan. Just as the dagger ran through the trees, Yuan suddenly turned around and stared at Lin Xiaoyue with a vigilant gaze. He spoke up and walked over, what are you doing? If you don't take the good road in the middle, why are you walking on the roadside full of weeds? End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Innocent lie on gun suspected. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 8. Where have all the criminals gone? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Where have all the criminals gone? Originally, Lin Xiaoyue kicked a few feet while walking in order to leave some marks along the road, hoping to get blood on the ground onto larger stones. My knee hurts when I walk, it's just kicking my leg. She looked up with a smirk as she was about to explain, only to find out that Jiang Bai was cursing the man dragged down on the ground. That man is really stubborn. He was tortured to the point of being half dead, and he even wanted to break free from Jiang Bai. As it was already downhill, Jiang Bai didn't have a good time dragging himself. The man took advantage of the situation and jumped up onto Jiang Bai's body. Let me go. The man roared and bit hard on one of Jiang Bai's ears. In a moment, Jiang Bai became very passive. Unless he didn't want his ears anymore, he could only listen to the man's words. But can that man really run away? There is also a Yamen runner here, using brute force alone to escape is not enough. Yuan had already drawn his long sword from his waist and quickly charged towards the man step by step. Lin Xiaoyue had a sudden inspiration. If Jiang Bai had lost one ear, he would definitely have suffered a lot of bleeding. It's not certain that people in the wilderness and mountains can survive. This is extremely beneficial for my future escape plan. She pretended to be scared and crouched on the ground screaming, "Ah! Knife, you're going to die." The man felt the sound behind him and decisively bit off Jiang Bai's ear. At the same time, Yuan's knife landed on the man's back. Blood splattered everywhere, and the man completely lost his breath, while Jiang Bai fainted directly due to heavy bleeding. Yuan quickly took out the golden healing medicine and sprinkled it all on Jiang Bai's wound. With such a big hole, a bottle of golden healing medicine couldn't stop the continuous flow of blood. Old Jiang! Old Jiang! Hold on, I'll take you to the clinic right away. You all come with me. If anyone dares to run, I'll kill you all with one blow. After warning everyone, he picked up Jiang Bai, who was unconscious, and ran desperately down the mountain. Lin Xiaoyue followed slowly behind, because she was dispensing medicine in space. She was a genius scientist in her past life, and dispensing some poison was not an easy task. When Jiang Bai dies, the days of Yuan are almost over. In no time, a porcelain bottle appeared in her hand, which was the bottle of the golden wound medicine that Yuan had just used up and thrown on the ground. Soon, Yuan carried Jiang Bai on his back to the small town at the foot of the mountain. Yanxi Town. My brother's ear has been bitten off. Doctor, hurry up and save someone. Yuan shouted and ran into the hospital, placing the person on the hospital bed. The other exiled prisoners were very dirty and disheveled, and the doctor was afraid of affecting the guests in the clinic, so they were all stopped outside. However, Lin Xiaoyue was dressed cleanly and didn't have any iron chains on her body, so she smoothly followed Yuan into the clinic. Jiang Bai's life was quite tough, almost bleeding to the point where he managed to hold on, but the doctor at the clinic was still startled when he saw Jiang Bai's condition. The doctor knew from the clothes of Yuan and Jiang Bai that they were officials in the capital. He dared not offend these people. It's easy to say if they are cured. If they can't be cured, they might end up taking his life. He waved his hand repeatedly and refused, "I apologize for my lack of talent and knowledge. Why don't you go somewhere else to take a look?" Yuan's anger surged up and he grabbed the doctor's hand, shouting sternly, "You think I'm a fool? There's only one clinic in Yanxi Town, where do you want me to go? You even said you want to drive us away." The blood on the doctor's face instantly faded, and his whole body began to tremble. He drove away the official, which was a crime that would cost his head. Even if he were killed, he wouldn't dare to admit it. No, no. This little brother is really seriously injured. I learned medicine to save lives and heal the wounded. There is no reason why it cannot be cured. There is really no rule of law. Yuan felt that Jiang Bai's breath was getting weaker and weaker. He was both anxious and angry, and pulled out a long knife from his waist to put it around the doctor's neck. "If you don't want to die, treat me. If my brother dies, you'll bury him in the entire store." The doctor was so scared that he almost fainted, but fortunately Lin Xiaoyue helped him up in time. Lin Xiaoyue secretly took out a large bag of silver from the space and put it in the doctor's hand, pleading, "Doctor, the money here should be enough to buy the medicinal herbs in your entire store. You can give him the best medicine to use. If you find the money too little, I'll give you another bag." The doctor touched the heavy money bag and sighed heavily, "There is medicine. But to be honest, this little brother's entire ear is gone. With such a big blood hole, I don't have full confidence." Lin Xiaoyue took out another large money bag and put it in the doctor's hand. "We know, please take medication." "Wait a moment, I'll go get the medicine," said the doctor, turning around and leaving with 2 large bags of silver. Yuan began to feel grateful that he had not troubled Lin Xiaoyue before, and at a critical moment, she was sure to provide money to save people. Thank you, but unfortunately I don't have the right to let you go. But don't worry, when we reach the northern border, I will have more people take care of you. Lin Xiaoyue's help to them is not to really save Jiang Bai, she just wants Yuan to relax his guard against her. Moreover, all the money she spent was moved out of the palace, and there was plenty of space, so she didn't feel any pain at all. It's nothing, just a little bit of money. Saving a person's life is better than building a level 7 pagoda. I also consider it a good deed. At this moment, the doctor cautiously walked over with a wooden tray, which contained gauze and 2 porcelain bottles. Lin Xiaoyue estimated that it should be antibiotics and hemostatic drugs. This is a specially made aphrodisiac that I have treasured for many years, and it is already the best medicine in my clinic. Whether it can stop bleeding depends on himself. As he spoke, the doctor opened a porcelain bottle and sprinkled it all on Jiang Bai's wound, then wrapped it tightly with gauze several times. Lin Xiaoyue looked at the circles of gauze, so nervous that she could hear her own breathing, and both hands clenched their fists. She kept praying in her heart, "Don't stop, definitely don't stop." Perhaps the heavens heard her voice. As soon as the doctor wrapped the gauze, bleeding oozed from the gauze again, from a little bit to more, and finally flowed down her neck, very oozing. The doctor saw that the wound-healing medicine was useless, so he quickly took out another porcelain bottle and poured out a pill from inside, stuffing it into Jiang Bai's mouth. This is the Yuan pill, the treasure of my shop. It can extend his life by 1 more day. Hurry up and find the shopkeeper of the Huichun Hall in Furong Town, which is the largest medical clinic nearby. Maybe he will find a way. Yuan's fists tightened and loosened, and he knew that even pushing this doctor would be useless. Yanxi Town was indeed too small, and being able to retrieve the Yuan Dan was also his greatest ability. Okay, thank you very much, doctor. As he spoke, Yuan put on Jiang Bai's unconscious back again, and listening to the faint heartbeat on Jiang Bai's body, hope reignited in Yuan's heart. He and his colleague Jiang Bai have been escorting exiled criminals for many years, going through the wind and rain. They are like siblings, and he really can't watch his own brothers die. But when he walked to the door and looked at the empty street, his heart sank to the bottom once again. What about the exiled criminals? Where did everyone go? End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Yuan's thoughts. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Yuan's thoughts. Lin Xiaoyue was ecstatic in her heart. In fact, when she saw the doctor driving people away, the exiled criminals retreated to the corner without much resistance, and she knew that those people were preparing to escape. Which one would choose between one's own future and the life of a good brother? She turned her head to look at Yuan with a pale face and said, "Life is at stake. You should report the case of those escaped prisoners to the county government. Let's hurry and head to Furong Town." Yuan, who didn't believe anyone now, turned around and walked into the clinic. He grabbed the doctor's neck and asked, "What about the people I brought?" Private exile is the crime of killing the 9 tribes. Don't you want to live anymore? The doctor didn't know about the situation outside yet and cursed in a bad tone, "I only care about seeing a doctor. What do your people have to do with me? They were all kicked out by me and waiting outside." Yuan couldn't hold back his anger anymore, and his strength gradually increased. "There's no one outside either. Just now you said you went to get the medicine and left for quite some time, did you let everyone go?" The doctor felt that the air in his throat was getting less and less, and his face turned a pig liver color. He couldn't even speak completely and intermittently. I don't know. Don't wrongly accuse a good person." "A good person?" Yuan dragged the doctor to the door and demanded, "What do you call my person?" The doctor looked at the empty street and couldn't do anything else. He turned to Lin Xiaoyue for help and said, "Girl, I just saved someone for your sake. Can you help me with something?" This adult is really unreasonable. Why did he still rely on me when he lost someone? Lin Xiaoyue couldn't help but roll her eyes. It's not kind of you to bring her up at this time, even though you saved someone based on the money I gave you. She quickly distanced herself and said, what can I say? I've been with this Yamen runner all along, and I've given you enough money for your medical treatment and rescue. I don't owe you anything. The doctor was taken aback by Lin Xiaoyue's words for a moment. He regretted accepting the money too much now. At that time, he couldn't save him by biting him to death, so there wouldn't have been an absence. This fierce Yamen runner also couldn't suspect him. It's too late to say anything now. Moreover, several shops around him usually treat him like brothers and sisters, but at this critical moment, no one actually comes out, closing and locking doors one by one, as if afraid of being implicated. He pleaded with a mournful expression, girl, I have also saved the person, and I have come up with a solution for you. Just let me go, this little old man. I really didn't let the prisoner go. Lin Xiaoyue knew how many words were wrong at this moment. She looked at Yuan and said, we can't stand like this, why don't we search separately? I see there are many shops around, I'll go and ask. Yuan grabbed Lin Xiaoyue in one fell swoop, and those who were chained disappeared without a trace, let alone someone like Lin Xiaoyue who was unbound. He shook his head and pointed to the doctor, saying, tie him up and take him with you. Lin Xiaoyue followed Yuan's hand and saw the doctor crying in Yuan's hand, feeling very embarrassed. She sighed in her heart. She didn't want to cause trouble for herself, but she didn't want to harm anyone. Okay, I'll find a rope. As she spoke, she ran to the clinic to find a rope. Yuan waited for the doctor's two hands to be tied up before he could release them with peace of mind. However, the doctor was very cunning, and he used his shoulder force to push Lin Xiaoyue away. Lin Xiaoyue didn't want to make things difficult for him, so he only used 30% force to stop him. As a result, the doctor successfully escaped and fled in a panic on the street. Oh, why is this little old man so energetic? He hit me so hard that my bones are about to break. Yamen officer, don't worry, I'll go chase him right away. Lin Xiaoyue got up from the ground with a painful face and limped towards the direction where the doctor was running away. Yuan strode forward and grabbed Lin Xiaoyue's arm, looked at her suspiciously, and asked, did you mean it? Yamen officer, you just saw. How can a weak woman stop a big man like me? The old man is a doctor, not a weak and sickly person. Lin Xiaoyue pretended to be angry and tried to push Yuan away, but Yuan's strength was too strong. In the end, her hand was hurt by pulling, and Yuan still stood still in place. In fact, Yuan also wanted to test Lin Xiaoyue. Seeing that she was indeed powerless, Yuan temporarily put aside his doubts in his heart. Let's go, the little old man can run away. The monk can't run away from the temple unless he doesn't want this clinic anymore. Let's first search for it in this small town. Those people with iron chains on their bodies can't run far. Lin Xiaoyue looked hesitantly at Jiang Bai on Yuan's body and said, can Jiang Bai, the Yamen guard, wait so badly? Why don't we report to the government? Yuan let out a heavy sigh and said, it's okay, he will understand us. Reporting to the authorities is absolutely not acceptable. If one of the charges is settled, I will also die. Lin Xiaoyue nodded repeatedly. Yuan couldn't die at this moment. What if the Yamen guards sent from the capital were not as easy to fool as Yuan and Jiang Bo? Okay, let's go then. Yanxi town is very small, with countless small streams flowing down from Yangming Mountain to form a wide lake called Wanxi Lake. Therefore, the villages on both sides of Wanxi Lake were divided into two towns, the small one called Yanxi Town and the large one called Furong Town. Hello, have you seen a few people chained up? Didn't you? Can you come over and tell us if you see it? We have a generous reward. Brother, have you seen anyone dirty with iron chains on their body? Big brother, can you tell me if you see it? I'll give you a reward. Hey girl, did you see a few people with iron chains passing by just now? Lin Xiaoyue followed Yuan's side, and whenever she encountered pedestrians or open shops, she would run over and ask patiently one by one. When everyone saw the beautiful and gentle Lin Xiaoyue, they could still say a few more words, but as soon as Yuan spoke fiercely, combined with the bloody person on his back, everyone avoided him. However, Lin Xiaoyue didn't mind either. She said that she had to do enough in acting, even if her throat became dry and her throat became hoarse later on. But Yanxi town was only that big, and Lin Xiaoyue accompanied Yuan around the town one circle after another. In the end, both feet were sore and painful, unable to lift them up, and still achieved nothing. What should I do? I didn't find anyone. Lin Xiaoyue licked her dry lips. She could almost drink a big vat of water now, so tired and thirsty. Yuan felt the person's breath on his back becoming weaker and weaker, and he also became more and more anxious. If you can't find it, take that little old man with you. Even if it's not his fault, it's his misfortune. Lin Xiaoyue didn't want to drag innocent people into the water, so she quickly stopped Yuan and urged him, "Officer, this doctor is the only doctor in the town. If he is caught by us, the situation will definitely escalate. When his family goes to the county government to file a lawsuit, you will still be at a disadvantage." Yuan never knew this truth, he really had no way out. Who should we find to take this blame for? His gaze wandered on the street and finally fell on Lin Xiaoyue. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Is he really not good? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Is he really not good? Lin Xiaoyue felt a thump in her heart. Malagobi, Yuan's gaze was not right. Shouldn't she want to take the blame? Bold. What kind of gaze are you looking at? I came out of the palace. When I return to the palace, see if I don't let the emperor punish you. With a chill in his heart, Yuan returned to the palace. Don't even think about it in this lifetime. Humph, you're overthinking it. Hurry up and leave, old Jiang can't hold on anymore. Looking at the figure in front of her, Lin Xiaoyue gradually clenched her fists. Yuan couldn't stay any longer, let's just do it sooner. It's not very far from Yanxi town to Furong town, but due to the delay in Yanxi town, by the time the two of them arrived at Furong town, the sky was already dark. Lin Xiaoyue smelled the aroma of the food wafting from the shops on the street, and her stomach was almost starving. Yaman, it's time to order. Let's have something to eat. I'll treat you to it. With a cold face, Yuan said, I won't eat. Then he continued walking forward without looking back, completely losing his previous easy-to-talk appearance. Lin Xiaoyue is really hungry and can't stand the temptation of eating mantu all the way. Now the street is full of delicious food. Who can resist this temptation? She sat down at a noodle vendor, just as she wanted a bowl of beef noodles, she was suddenly pulled up by Yuan. Yuan, what are you doing? I'm starving to death. You go to the Spring Festival Hall first, and I'll come eat a bowl of noodles. Don't worry, I'll never run away. She exclaimed in anger, directly calling out Yuan's name. What's so polite? If you dare to make her hungry, she dares to work hard. Yuan said coldly, no way. If old Jiang dies, then you'll pay for his life. Lin Xiaoyue has never talked about such an unreasonable person before. Before, she thought Yuan was easy to talk to, but it had not happened yet. Now that it touches on his future, his face is torn apart. Pay for your life. Believe it or not, I'll run to the county government to accuse you of releasing and exiling criminals without authorization. It's really uncertain who will die first when the time comes. Yuan's face turned red and his neck was thick with Lin Xiaoyue's words. He has never hated a woman so much in his life. Okay, you're ruthless. You'd better finish your noodles and come back to the Spring Festival Hall honestly, otherwise, I'll be the one reporting to the county government. Lin Xiaoyue snorted coldly, "Don't forget, I paid for Jiang Bai's medical treatment in Yanxi town." As she spoke, she shook off He Yuan's hand and silently added in her heart, "I will wait here for you to come and beg me." He Yuan is in a hurry to treat Jiang Bai, and he is too lazy to argue with Lin Xiaoyue here anymore. It's hard to find ordinary exiled prisoners, but the exiled women in the palace are very easy. Pooh! Money is amazing. He spat at Lin Xiaoyue and turned his head to run towards the Spring Revival Hall. Lin Xiaoyue looked at the phlegm on her skirt and smiled faintly. She waved to the waiter who was watching not far away and said, "Waiter, I want a bowl of beef noodles and 2 chicken legs." The waiter nodded with a smile and said, "Okay, please wait a moment." In ancient times, without technology and ruthlessness, even simple white noodles like Lin Xiaoyue could taste delicious, let alone slices of fragrant beef. Biting them in her mouth, they were fresh, tender, and juicy, with a pungent aroma wrapped around the original meat aroma. She felt like she was swallowing while eating. She quickly finished sweeping the beef noodles from the bowl, then picked up the chicken leg and took a bite. 2 words. Delicious. It's not fishy at all, and the chicken has a bit of chewiness when bitten, but it doesn't age at all. Should it be walking on the ground? Unlike those chickens that walk no more than 3 meters in their lifetime, the taste is simply too bad. Unconsciously, Lin Xiaoyue had already eaten 1 chicken leg. She touched her bulging belly and decided to rest for a while, and later ate the other chicken leg. Compared to the leisurely and contented Lin Xiaoyue here, He Yuan is much more miserable. He ran to the Spring Festival Hall hungry, but was stopped by the staff in the store because of the strong smell of blood on his body. "Go ahead. Don't pull dead people inside." The guy covered his nose and drove away He Yuan with great disdain. This is probably the most humiliating day since He Yuan became a yamen runner. He took out his waist tag and scolded, "Bastard, open your dog's eyes and see clearly. I am a yamen runner in the capital. My brother is injured, let your shopkeeper get out of here." Brother sneered in his heart, "Do you really think this Spring Festival Hall is a place to collect garbage? A small yamen runner dares to shout around here. What's wrong with those from the capital? The Spring Festival Hall also has a storefront in the capital. I haven't seen any benefactor who wouldn't give a fair share to Huichuntang. I really consider myself a person." He politely declined and said, "The shopkeeper is not here. You can find another place. Hurry up, hurry up." He Yuan knew that the Spring Festival Hall had some background, but he didn't expect the guys here to be so disrespectful. He suddenly broke into the trap and rushed inside, shouting loudly, "Is the shopkeeper there? Help! Help my brother's life!" The shopkeeper inside the wing had already heard the commotion outside, and he had never walked out because he was very dissatisfied with He Yuan's domineering attitude. Therefore, even if He Yuan shouted outside for a long time, he remained indifferent. The guy is in pain from being hit and extremely angry. He saw that the shopkeeper had not even come out, so he probably had some confidence in his heart. So he called everyone in the store to surround He Yuan. This person is so bold that he dares to break into the Spring Festival Hall and throw him out. Others immediately gathered around when they heard the guy say this, some raised their hands and some raised their feet, trying to lift He Yuan up. He Yuan worked as a messenger in the capital and specifically exiled criminals. It's impossible to do it twice. After yelling loudly, he tried his best to shake off the people on his body and angrily cursed with blood-red eyes. The Spring Festival Hall is a medical institution, a place for treating and saving people. There is no reason to dare a patient to leave. The guy arrogantly crossed his waist and pointed at He Yuan's nose, cursing, "Can't we cure it? You have the ability to report it to the government and see who the county magistrate will help." Watching the people constantly surrounding and driving him away, a sense of helplessness and desolation surged into He Yuan's heart. Was he wrong? If Jiang Bai had not been saved at that time, those exiled prisoners would not have had a chance to escape, and he would not have ended up in a situation where the earth was not functioning properly, and every day should not have been called a place where the earth was not functioning properly. And Lin Xiaoyue is becoming more and more reckless towards him now. By the way, didn't this guy just come over to eat noodles? Did she also run away? Yuan couldn't help but recall the conversation between the two at the noodle stand. Lin Xiaoyue finally said not to forget that she paid for Jiang Bai's medical treatment in Yanxi town. So Lin Xiaoyue has been waiting for him to come over and beg her. How could it be that Lin Xiaoyue has forgotten her identity? An exiled empress who dares to give orders to the government officials is really too polite to her. After he finishes dealing with this, go back and smoke her to death, let her know how to be a person. Yuan took a deep breath and touched the silver in his arms. This was what Lin Xiaoyue had shown him before. He gritted his teeth and took out a large bag of silver, scolding, "I don't refuse to give silver. You open the door and do business, don't you make money." The guy took the money bag and opened it, threw it back into Yuan's hand and said disdainfully, "Your brother is not a minor illness. He's almost out of breath. Are you sending a beggar with this money? Let's go, we don't have money to see what kind of illness." In the end, Yuan was still driven out by the people from the revival hall, and he looked at the silver in his hand with indignation in his heart. Damn it! Can't he really be without Lin Xiaoyue? End of this chapter.